This morning I wake up with a shocking dream, and I don't know what it was from reading or watching something. I'm standing in Nazi Germany as the Nazis are coming to power. It's me in real time now, but it's then. In other words, I had a forward-backward thing. I'm standing there on a bridge watching the Nazis march by in their crisp uniforms, so many of them, and I'm praying to God that they don't discover that I'm not a Nazi. And I'm standing there terrified that they're going to look at me and know that I'm not a Nazi, and they're going to take me in and do horrible things to me. Now, I know I had that dream because I feel like I'm living in an occupied nation. Everywhere I go in America, I feel as though I'm living in an occupied nation. I didn't say occupied by Nazis, but the dream is quite profound in terms of its comparables to what's going on under Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and the other fascisti, who are pretending in the name of the downtrodden and the poor to build a totalitarian regime unlike any ever seen in the United States of America. And I want to remind you of something. If they could destroy the doctors, which they've done, if they could take on the doctors and the hospitals and the insurance companies, which they've done, and crush them, then they can crush anybody, and they know it. They have almost completed their revolution. Not quite. There are a few impediments to this liberal fascist revolution. And one of the greatest impediments to them right now is the Second Amendment. They're terrified of it. Witness the back off at the Bundy Ranch standoff. Harry Reid backed off because he didn't want to shoot men, women, and children with his SS squad, the Bureau of Land Management, who was the equivalent of the SA or the SS. The BLM thugs with their scope rifles aimed at the children and the women were the equivalent of his own personal SS bodyguard. They were ready to pull the trigger, and somebody wisely said, do not do it. That was one indicator. But am I getting too far afield here? Did I lose you already in the audience? Are you interested only in the gay basketball player? I mean, that's a story for you? And that's an interesting story to you? Not to me. I don't give a damn. I think him kissing a guy in public went a long way towards confusing young boys, incidentally. Okay? That's number one. But I don't want to talk about it. I just don't want to talk about it. But the liberal fascists have almost completed their takeover of the entire world with the liberal revolution. There are only a few impediments. One is the Second Amendment, as I was just saying. And on a national level, the only thing that stands in their way of a complete domination of the world is Russia, which is why they forced Russia into a corner, thinking that Russia would capitulate to Ukraine becoming a part of NATO and then putting NATO troops on Russia's border to further push Russia back within its own borders. But they didn't count on Putin's strength. They didn't count on Putin's nationalism. And they didn't count on the fact that Putin would say, no, I'm not rolling over to Barack Obama and the degenerate perverts in the Brussels establishment. The child molesters in Brussels and Obama together may have crushed the whole world, but they're not crushing me. That's what Putin thought. So were it not for Russia, there'd be a worldwide liberal revolution that would be complete right now. The emerging new Soviet Union is liberal today. Say liberal doesn't mean the same thing, does it? It does. It means exactly the same thing. It means government control of everything you think, everything you say, everything you eat, everything you breathe, everything you drink, controlled by a centralized power. That's what the liberal revolution means. Centralized power. No individual liberties. So they confuse you into thinking that if you can have sex with anybody that you want at any time, you're free. What you don't understand is they've enslaved you with this free sex. They've enslaved you by telling you that your freedom consists of sexuality only, while in all other spheres you have almost no freedom. You're a complete and total drone. You are watched all the time. You're spied upon all the time. You are suspicious. You are looked upon suspiciously by the centralized government all the time. The only thing they allow you to have is sexual freedom. And then they drug you if you get nervous. If you get even a hint that you really are a slave in the New World Order, they drug you to death. Your anxiety is called this, your anxiety is called that. They drug our boys. Primarily our boys are put on these psychoactive compounds for illnesses that don't even exist. They make up illnesses, ADD, ADHD. They overdiagnose them, and then they drug our boys when they act like boys. And so this is the overview to what I see going on in the world. And it's what motivates me to get up in the morning and to deliver the message the best way I can. And yes, I'm going to tell you right now, I worked all weekend on my book called Stop the Coming Civil War. I worked on it all weekend, and things came so clearly to me, primarily because I'm in sharp focus right now as to what's going on in the world and how far Obama's gotten when he should have been impeached at least 2 years ago for what he's done. One impeachable crime after another was ignored by the spineless cowards in the media and the spineless, non-existent people in the Republican Party. Now, what is it that they're doing is they're taking on the Benghazi issue as the biggest scandal of all. Do you actually believe Benghazi is the biggest of Obama's scandals? Now, you well know that if the Republicans have agreed to appoint a special committee, they're not going to get anywhere. You already know that the fix is in. You know it's going to be a show trial, like a Stalin show trial. They'll find nothing, and they'll say this must never happen again, and then they'll move on. They will have appeased their base. Nobody will go to jail, but it's not Obama's biggest crime. Not Benghazi. The biggest crime is spying on Americans with total and absolute freedom to spy on everybody. It's a violation of every principle that America stands for. Spying on Americans is un-American. Spying on Americans with impunity is un-American. Spying on every American would excite any American. Even the lowest dummy, the morons who watch basketball games and follow that, let's say that it's so important, even that moron doesn't want to be spied on. Even that low IQ moron would understand being spied on secretly by a government, and he wouldn't like it. That idiot in New York City. Even that nymphomaniac across the street who knows nothing except what pulses between her eyes. Even that idiot would not want to be spied upon. But Benghazi means nothing to them, so they've picked the wrong hearing. At least it's one man's opinion. When I come back, I will read you the news headlines, none of which were described just now in the beginning of the Savage Nation. The phone number here, if you care to join the conversation, is 855-400-7282. This is Nonstop to the Truth with Michael Savage. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now.
But I'm concerned that we've not pushed the Europeans hard enough to take a firmer line against the Russians. And our allies in the region are scared to death. What Putin is doing is making the world less safe, and certainly making Europe less safe.
Okay, so there's John Boehner, Klink. He's on message with the War Party. The War Party is both parties. They're tied into the government media complex, the military-industrial complex, and they want possibly a limited engagement with Russia, because just think how good that would be for the defense stocks. Just think about rearmament, what that would mean. I mean, in between putting transgenders on submarines, they might actually build a new weapon. In between putting women into submarines and taking out torpedo tubes so they can have new showers, they might actually have to build, let's say, a stealth submarine or whatever. So now you understand that there's no difference between the main parties. Again, they're demonizing Putin and Russia, when in fact the reverse is true. It's the U.S. and the EU that push Russia to become militant. Make no mistake about it. That's the way it is. I don't care what the propagandists are reporting. I'm telling you how I see it. They got it upside down and backwards. This country has become a nation run by warmongers in both parties.